Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers badly need to develop an identity. What should it look like? What's next?
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter where you get your podcasts, this one's always free, never behind paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers, Andy, all of whom are excited to know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200,000. You cannot.
No.
Cannot get that.
No. Cannot emphasize.
No.
No, you cannot. No. You cannot.
Gonna need you all to hack off 3 zeros off what I just said. What you can have is $200 in bonus bets when your first $5.
Let me tell you something.
Wins.
$200,000 in bonus bets off a $5 win. That would be the best deal ever. Unfortunately, FanDuel nor frankly any service is offering anything like that.
But you know what? $200 from that's also very good.
It's a great deal. It's just not insane.
It's just not that one.
Right.
So, apologies to anybody who got a little excited there for a moment.
Including, by the way, the people at FanDuel.
Right. But not in a good way.
like those
Andy
people.
Andy was about ready to be like, wait, they changed that deal? Hold on a minute. I'll be right back.
Hello.
I don't need this show anymore.
Later, suckers.
We have spent a lot of time over the last week or so talking about some of the different ways interspersed between happenings and news we've learned about. LeBron's reported plans to go ahead and pick up his option, and we've talked about skinny Luka, and we've done a lot of stuff in between. But a lot of what we are talking about, Andy, kind of keeps coming back to this idea of whether or not, like how the Lakers can establish a real identity, how they're going to recreate a championship caliber roster. We've looked at some of the teams that are still playing right now, the 4 teams that are still playing, and seeing if there's anything that the Lakers can learn from them. And there are, and one of them I know for you is identity.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was taking a look at the past 2 teams that Luka had the most success on with Dallas, the one that went to the 2024 finals and the one that went to the 2022 Western Conference finals. And the 2024 team that went to the finals, the starting 5 was Luka, Kyrie Irving, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Jones Jr. Interesting note, Jones Jr. that year might have been the best veteran minimum signing in the league, which is important to remember because the Lakers are going to have to try to hit on at least one really good vet min. And then the main guys off the bench were Derek Lively, but he was also, this is important to remember as well, on a rookie scale deal, Josh Green and Maxi Kleber or Tim Hardaway Jr. And then the 2022 team was Luka, who I believe may have still been at that point on his own rookie scale deal, Jalen Brunson, DFS, Reggie Bullock, and Dwight Powell is a very nominal starting center. And then the main guys off the bench, Maxi Kleber and Spencer Dinwiddie. So if you're looking for commonalities there, it is basically Luka with one other guy who can score and play make at a reasonably high level, or in the case of Kyrie, an elite level. Jalen Brunson wasn't quite that at that point. And then defense and shooting, like a lot of guys who can shoot, a lot of guys who can defend. And in these 2 teams, a lot of guys who could do both. That seems to be the formula that has worked best for Luka. And it actually makes a lot of sense because, particularly that 2024 team with Lively and Gafford, and even in his own right, Derek Jones Jr., you've got the wing defense, but also a lot of guys who can protect the rim, protect the lane, and really fully support Luka defensively. And then you set him up with a bunch of different shooters who can knock down the shots that Luka creates as well as anybody in the league. So if you are looking to replicate Luka's past success as the Lakers look to build around Luka, that seems to be a pretty good template.
I think, there's one of the models that you can look at when building a team is that, people call it a heliocentric model. You're basically a bunch of guys revolving around the sun. And obviously in that metaphor, Luka is the sun. And, the Lakers still will presumably have LeBron next year. They certainly may have Austin Reaves, but they may not. And I think one of the things that they'll have to adjust to, and they really did start to get there as the season went on, is an offense that really does fundamentally operate around Luka, where Luka is the guy with the ball most of the time. Luka is the one, initiating the offense. Luka is the one that draws that first bit of attention from opposing defenses. You obviously will have moments where Luka's not playing. You want to keep his minutes probably around 34, 35 a game next year, something like that, maybe in a tick lower if you're still playing well. Those are minutes LeBron becomes the sun, and potentially does that, or Austin Reaves and all that. And I think what the Lakers are trying to do with those two guys, at least LeBron and Luka, is figure out, what do we do with LeBron in a universe where Luka is the sun? And then you'll start to put other things around. I think the formula of a lob threat is something the Lakers are obviously looking for. Shooting is something the Lakers are constantly trying to get, and started
just like every team around the league,
right,
by the way.
Started to put something together over the course of last season. And it's one of the reasons that it is tricky to trade, just decide you're going to move Rui Hachimura or Austin Reaves or guys like that who are an important part of your three-point shooting foundation. You got to make sure you get those guys back, because you don't want, as you've pointed out with LeBron, you don't want Luka to be your primary source of three-pointers. You don't really even want LeBron to be that guy, because you still want to be able to get him moving downhill where he is most effective. You also want him to at his own discretion, to be taking three-pointers now that he's somewhere between a 36 to 40% guy from there. It's worth it. But you don't want to just set it up so he's just hanging out by the perimeter. And so I think the basic idea of what you're talking about here, the formula is pretty well established. What looks good around Luka? It's kind of what used to look good around LeBron in his prime too.
Both have been very heliocentric players.
Yeah, because they're freaks. They are. It's hard to say they're both unicorns when they're, on the same team. But you get my point. It's like you have guys who are that big, that skilled, and that whatever, who can also distribute the ball. It's natural to make them the center of the offense. You have to figure out what to do with that second son. And I think LeBron, this was the part that we talked about a lot during the season. I didn't accept the idea that the two of them couldn't play together. And I think with an off season, maybe I'm being too optimistic. I'm actually of the mind that they will come into camp with a lot of ideas on how to make this work better and how to get LeBron the ball in positions that are advantageous to him, because he made that point a few times during the year. Luka draws so much attention. Now LeBron gets the ball on the move, on a back screen, while the defense is rotating, things like that have never happened over the course of his career. So challenges aside, to, that you've pointed out, to working a roster around LeBron, the skill set, when you talk about an identity, I see no reason that LeBron can't fit into it.
There were many things that the Lakers had to figure out last year post-Luka trade. Getting LeBron to accommodate Luka was not on that list at all.
No.
Like I thought LeBron went way out of his way to make it clear, don't worry about stepping on my toes. That's not a thing. I want to be sharing the ball with you.
And it's not, that doesn't mean it worked perfectly.
No. But
it just means that when it didn't work, it wasn't because LeBron was unwilling to cede, sort of cede control.
No, I thought LeBron went out of his. I thought LeBron went out of his way to message that's not a thing to worry about.
All right. When after the break, you have been spending a lot of time with the trade machine, more than with your family. I really, and that part's shameful.
So both our audience and my family are grateful. Yes.
So after the break, I want to break down a trade that you have made, and I think it's going to get to a different part of identity and roster building that's been all the rage in terms of NBA conversations during the postseason. We'll get to it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't-miss moments. And whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have never had more ways to play smart and to win big. You can track players who consistently show up in the big moments, but also when they put on those superhero capes and the trends that can help inform your next bet. Maybe you take that knowledge and you roll it into a same-game parlay. You press things up, keep it interesting, keep it exciting, keep it fun. Whether you're new to FanDuel, if you are new to FanDuel, this is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets.
200. That's it. 200. 0-0. Move on.
Fiend. Make every moment more of FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your trade, because it is elaborate, it is fun, it is exactly the kind of thing that a person should be spending his time on while the playoffs are still going on and we're like a month and a half away from free agency.
Before we get to this trade, I just wanted to bring up one last thing in terms of identity and the heliocentrism concept that we were talking about before with LeBron and Luka, and another layer of it. Austin, in theory, figures into that as well. And it's going to be something that makes it hopefully more upside, the idea of all three of them being able to do a lot of that same stuff. But also it adds another wrinkle in terms of how to make that work. And it's going to require the full, not just buy-in, because I don't think any of those three are resistant to anything that they were being asked to do last year and trying to work as a trio. But it's going to require the discipline to really, really work in concert, all three of them, over 48 minutes, because the theoretical upside to those three being on the same team, we've gone through a lot of the limits and the downsides and whatever, but the theoretical upside is you've got three somewhere between above average to elite scorers and playmakers playing off each other, which should keep defenses constantly off balance. But if you're not committed to truly working that identity and bleeding it dry every game, you're ultimately not only not getting the most out of all three of these guys, but then you start looking at a situation where maybe we would be better off doing something else because we're not maximizing what is our theoretical best, most difficult to cover advantage.
Right. And whether there's the opportunity. I mean, I think the most compelling, for me, the most compelling argument to trade Austin isn't that he's not good enough, that he was exposed in the playoffs, that he can't do this. It's just that you could say that the way they're put together today is not really ideal for maximizing all three of the guys that you have that are your three best players. I will say the flip side is there is a universe in which you can create a team where Luka is your best player. I don't want to say AR is automatically your second. There's a post-LeBron world where AR, if he's your second best player, you obviously need a really good third best player, like somebody who comes in and you're sort of maybe a little like Indiana, where, Halliburton is obviously the star, and, the second best player is Pascal Siakam, probably. Maybe Miles Turner. It's like, those aren't stars, but they've been all-stars, or they're all-star adjacent. And it's just one of those things where if you have a guy who isn't LeBron, maybe as your number two, LeBron of a couple years ago, LeBron and D Wade, whatever it is, the rest 2 through 5 just have to be better. And so there are a lot of different ways to construct this. And it is important I think, to think about scenarios where you are post LeBron and you actually have a core that includes, I don't want to say is built around, but includes Austin Reaves with Luka. I think that is part of the scenario that doesn't necessarily get talked about enough, but it's also, the timing of it is tricky because nobody knows how long LeBron is going to play.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's another one of the reasons, that just the logistical challenges of LeBron. And if for some reason they knew next year would be his last, at least in LA, it might not automatically be a good thing, but similar to acquiring Luka, it answers questions. It provides clarity. So now you can plan.
Anyway, this trade that I came up with, I want to make crystal clear. This is a fake trade. This is not something
super fake.
Right. Super fake. It's something that I concocted. It is, based to some degree off, what I think could be it's a 3-team trade, and it's based in some ways off what I think could be the goals of these other 2 trades, or players that could be theoretically available. But this is based off nothing other than my somewhere between imagination and educated guesses. I am not saying that it is a given that the Nets or the Rockets, the 2 other teams involved, would make this team. It is very possible that both teams would want a little more, something different. And from the Lakers' perspective, they don't have a lot of ability to mix and match, swap guys in and out between their cap situation and limited assets. But I don't think the frameworks that we're talking about are outrageous for the Nets or the Rockets. And for these purposes, we're focusing on the Lakers' perspective. My goal in this trade was to try to think about what is the most realistic way to rebalance the roster to where it feels much more balanced in terms of two-way guys, offense and defense, less positional redundancy, while still hopefully improving what's there and making them more formidable. And it, like I said, it's very radical. In this deal, the Lakers would send Rui Hachimura, Maxi Kleber, 2028 and 2030 swaps to Brooklyn, who would also get Cam Whitmore from the Rockets, I think both because it's a guy that they would want, but also to make the money work. They would then send to Houston, Austin Reaves, Dalton Connect, Gabe Vincent, Shake Milton, and the 2031 first-round pick. The Lakers, in turn, get Nick Claxton, Jabari Smith Jr., Dillon Brooks. You're now looking at a starting lineup of Luka Dončić, Dillon Brooks, LeBron James, Jabari Smith Jr., who, fun fact, Kwame Brown's cousin, and Nick Claxton, a bench of Dorian Finney-Smith, presumably either opting into his current player option or re-signed to a longer deal, Jared Vanderbilt, who I don't think the Lakers have enough sweeteners to make these deals, and move Vando, who's going to require some sweetener of his own just to get moved for the time being. Jordan Goodwin, who is a no-brainer, I think, to pick up his team option. The taxpayer mid-level exception I would use on either the best offensive player available, thinking maybe someone like Dennis Schroeder, or the best big available, like Clint Capella, Brooke Lopez, veterans minimums.
If you could get them.
And Bronny James. Side note, by the way, we've talked a lot over the course of last year about the merits, downsides, Nepo baby, contract worthiness, concessions, timing with a guaranteed contract on this Lakers roster. Was it a wasted pick? Everything with Bronny last season, and I'm not looking for another round of any of it because I thought we had bled the rock dry. But
no,
while screwing around and trying to come up with these fake trades, I landed on a very under-discussed downside to the Bronny pick, regardless of how you feel about Bronny's potential. Because of the perceived politics connected to Bronny, he is essentially $2-ish million on this roster off the table as a salary balancer. Maybe now that LeBron and Bronny have played together, things could change. But for the time being, he is, I think, pretty much considered untradeable as a former 55th pick, which I think we can all agree would never be the case with anybody else. And that is not convenient for the Lakers.
I want to ask you a question about that, and we'll get into the trade and what it might do and all of that next. I get why, Andy, you would say the Lakers can't trade Bronny. Are we 100% sure the Lakers can't trade Bronny?
No, we're not. I'm just saying for the time being, I think the overwhelming consensus is that the Lakers are not going to trade Bronny while LeBron is on this team. It may be a mistaken perception.
I agree with you. It's the consensus. What I think, there are a couple things I think they wouldn't do. I think they wouldn't trade him without talking about it with LeBron.
Of course.
I'm not sure that they wouldn't. I think permission is too strong a word, but I don't think they would do it without at least giving him the old heads up.
Huh.
And I do wonder if there are scenarios in which they could see as like, Team Bronny, like, you know what? Well, he's still going to have trouble getting playing time in LA. Send him to the right organization, might get to play more.
Absolutely.
Next year. And then the third scenario in this is the Lakers might not yet be, obviously, if you can acquire Miles Turner in a sign and trade or something, which by the way, they can't, but it lets, you understand what I'm getting at. And the Bronny James number needs to be in there. I think he'll go. But it is possible, I think the Lakers might want to see one more year of this, just because, side note to all of it, we'll move on to the trade thing. Bronny actually had, for a 55th pick, a very solid developmental year. So that was encouraging.
I'm not disagreeing with that assessment, but I think you would concede this would not be a discussion for any other 55th pick unless they just blew the doors off of their rookie year, that they would be considered potentially off the table as a salary balancer for a trade. I mean, we can agree. Yes.
Right.
Let's be adults about this.
I 100% agree with everything else you were saying. I was just wondering if we, all of us are 100% sure they actually can't and or wouldn't trade Bronny. Because I'm not. I think, but I agree with the premise is very well grounded. All right, so let's review this again. The Lakers essentially, to recap, trade everyone that is essentially tradable. So that excludes LeBron, Luka, Vando, because he's basically untradeable. It requires too much
to trade
because
he's difficult to trade while doing other trades.
Right. You have to add too much stuff the Lakers don't have to get rid of him. Bronny
and DFS.
But DFS isn't tradable yet but like those are the guys who everybody else goes. So that includes Reaves, it includes Rui, it includes Connect. In return now, the pieces the Lakers get are Nick Claxton from Brooklyn, and then both Jabari Smith Jr. and Dylan Brooks from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I can see there is a universe because Austin Reaves goes to Houston. They showed in the playoffs, good God, they need more reliable scoring.
Mm-hmm.
There is at least some position.
They also probably want to open up some time for Reed Shepherd, who is a guard, and Dylan Brooks is likely blocking some of his opportunity.
Sure.
They're not going to be able to keep all of their young guys.
Right. They love Jabari Smith. So, I do. Would Houston do it? I don't know. I could see where Brooklyn might balk a little bit in what they get, but
I've already conceded this.
Right. That's not the point. The point of this is, would you basically recreate your entire roster, and is it better off here this way than not. And, the Dillon Brooks part of it is going to be hard for a lot of fans because he's just so hateable. But what is your theory behind why this realignment really works for the Lakers?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, I wanted to just provide the audience the idea of what I think is realistically possible for a radical reshaping of the roster, working with what the Lakers have in front of them. Side note, Brian and I have been going through spot treks, like salaries for every single team, free agents, upcoming salaries, and we're going to start doing deeper dives into some other possibilities as well. But I'm looking for something that feels at least semi-realistic for reshaping the roster. And like I said, rebalancing it. And I'm not 100% convinced that my own creation is an upgrade in terms of pure talent. Like, I don't think it's out of the question, but I don't think it's ironclad either. But I'm 1,000% convinced that this roster is way more balanced and with much more two-way viability than what the Lakers have been working with. It's a starting five with way less redundancy. It's a bench with potentially less redundancy, depending on who else rounds it out.
It's a bench with not a lot on it, to be perfectly honest.
Sure. But again, I'm looking for the taxpayer mid-level. I'm looking for vet mins. And you have to hit on some of these, which the Lakers were going to be having to do anyway.
For sure. But they're sending out more players than they're bringing back. So it puts them in a tricky position in terms of those types of things. It would also have the 55th pick. Right. If they kept it, another pick that they might buy, but you don't expect those guys to make an impact.
No. You also, the trade that I'm offering, you do this without having to worry about any new larger contract on the horizon for the new guys other than Jabari Smith Jr. But he just turned 22. And by the way, the Lakers need long-term youth. And you would only do this deal if you want to commit to Smith anyway. Like, he's not a rental guy. Claxton also, you're getting a younger guy under contract for a few more years for most of his prime. He just turned 26. He's basically Luka's age. So I feel like you are getting younger, at least across the starting rotation. You're getting way more balanced. I think like there is much more two-way balance with what I'm offering. You get some shooting. You, I think, get more positional clarity. And you're sacrificing cap flexibility and free agency as a more immediate plan in 2026. But, if you're not convinced the free agency path would pan out anyway, and you brought up the dangers with that in Wednesday's show, then you have to at least think about building something more viable. Dillon Brooks also is an expiring deal, about 20-ish mil for the 2026 offseason. So you could maybe make a move using Brooks's contract. Claxton's deal is not unpalatable if you wanted to.
If you think he's good, no, he's not.
Right. And Vando at least has one fewer year. Like, it would be difficult to do as much stuff in the 2026 offseason in terms of free agency. But if you're not convinced that's viable, then I think you need to be building towards something. And in the meantime, like I said, I think the roster that I recreated, if nothing else, is much more balanced with way, way less redundancy.
I think, again, I like a lot of trades that will come up. Is it kind of net favorable to the Lakers? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, but it's not crazy.
I mean, look, man, I gave up everything the Lakers can give.
Right? No,
like it's not. But you got. It's not like I attempted to do this while keeping Reaves and Connect.
No, you can't do that. Picks. No, you gave up all the stuff that they could give up. Right. There's no question. And I think,
I didn't ask for Amon Thompson.
No. And that's why it's a generous offer from.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I tried to keep this grounded.
What it does is because I think this conversation about depth in the NBA right now is fascinating, because some of the old ideas of you don't need depth in the playoffs and all this, which I think have always been a little bit misinterpreted. Depth matters. But it can take a variety of forms. What depth can be, we're really good 1 through 6. Like, if you look at the Knicks and like the type of depth that they have, like that's a really, there's top 6 guys, Josh Hart on the bench, Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup, or vice versa. That's a really good top 6. Now they don't have as much, maybe it's just Tibbs, but maybe they don't have as much faith in like Miles McBride or other guys like that. But like, that's a lot of talent in a starting lineup. Indiana has more depth through 8 or 9 and have built it with hitting on draft picks. They've done well with cast-off players like Neesmith and Obi Toppin. They made a really smart star-for-star trade. I think like if you're looking for a
and the Siakam trade worked out really well
for sure. If you're looking for a smart, like an interesting template for what a Reaves trade could do, Reaves wouldn't get you Tyrese Halliburton, but that was sort of a rebalancing and a changing the identity and the nature of the team, where they sent a star for a presumed star. Sabonis goes to Sacramento. He's played quite well. He's done exactly what you would want Domantas Sabonis to do, and you get Tyrese Halliburton back, who has also thrived in Indiana, obviously. The Lakers wouldn't be getting a star back, but you would be trading Austin Reaves for, in theory, an Austin Reaves caliber player at a position that works better for your team, which is, I think, what you're sort of
trying to. That Jabari Smith Jr. becomes a star. Like,
right.
You're
sure.
hoping that in a couple years he can be, if not, I mean, I don't know if you consider Austin. I mean, some of this has to do with, do you consider Austin Reaves potentially good enough to even be in the conversation for the second best player alongside Luka? But the hope is that Jabari Smith can become an all-star caliber player. And then in the meantime, you've got Luka surrounded by, at minimum, 3+ to well above average defenders, with Claxton, Jabari Smith Jr., and Dylan Brooks there.
Right. LeBron, and then LeBron, when the time comes.
Right. And I think with LeBron more supplemented defensively, it might be easier for him to balance the offense and the defense. Again,
and LeBron can, be slotted into a position where, here's the thing that I think is instructive here. You have built a team, realistic or not, you've built a team that is like the Knicks. It would be sort of that model, really good 1 through 5, 6 through 10, you've got a lot of work to do.
Well, if DFS plays at the level that the Lakers hope
to
1
through
be
6.
at,
1 through 6.
Right. I mean, DFS was one of 5 guys that
good player
JJ trusted last year.
I forgot, but like, DFS as your 6th man is okay, depending on what else you have coming behind you. You really got a lot of question marks in terms of bench scoring, in terms of backups, you got a lot of things to do. But you can build realistically something like this where it looks like you've really improved your upper level talent in a lot of ways. You've created holes at the bottom of the roster. What the Lakers can't do, I think this experiment really shows that it's going to be really hard for them to improve the starting 5, get that balance in the starting 5, and improve depth. So you have an Indiana style roster, or, I mean, good God, an Oklahoma City style roster where you've got dudes who are probably rotation players on bunches of different teams around the league who can't crack this one. By the way, this becomes a show I want to get into later in the summer. The Lakers need to choose a path here. And so maybe this is something we can pick up a little bit for tomorrow. But I think that, to me, is the most instructive thing about this trade scenario you've laid out. It's a fun one. And let us know what you think about it. Leave us questions, leave us comments. Let us know what you think about Andy's mega trade between the Lakers, Houston, and Brooklyn. Maybe we'll even get some guys on from Locked On Rockets and Locked On Nets to discuss. In the meantime, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers. We'll see everyone tomorrow.